Well, hello, and thank you for stopping by today. Have you ever wished that you had a team of experts in your back pocket, able to explain public safety technology when the jargon gets to be just too much? The Mid-Atlantic Center for Emergency Management and Public Safety and Anthem Planning Incorporated have partnered up to build you that team. I'm Kathy Francis, Executive Director of the Frederick Community College Mid-Atlantic Center for Emergency Management and Public Safety. We're very excited to showcase our partnership with Anthem Planning and to continue our collaborative public safety technology interview series. It is my pleasure to welcome Amy LePore, President of Anthem Planning. Amy?
Thank you so much, Kathy. It is wonderful to be back with your team after what feels like such a long time in this interview series. So thank you for inviting us along. Our team is thrilled to have here with us today Joseph Putney, the Director of Commercial Systems for Robotic Research. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you for inviting me.
Joe has 14 years of experience with the robotics industry, and at Robotic Research, he is responsible for the development and expansion of the company's work in transforming public transportation systems with autonomy solutions. Joe's list of notable work is extensive and includes development and integration of autonomous technology for, is it 15 different vehicles, Joe?
Yes. Yeah, our company has done it on over 40 vehicles, but personally I've done it on 15.
And that work has been both domestic and international work. Joe holds several patents for robotic engineering and holds a Master of Science and Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from Virginia Tech. We are happy to have you here with us today. Joe, do you want to tell us a bit more about yourself?
Sure. So I'll tell you how I got my start in the robotics industry. I was fortunate enough to be around during the DARPA Grand Challenge and actually competed in the second DARPA Grand Challenge. That's basically the competition that's sparked the interest in AV technology in the mid 2000s and to date. So a lot of the companies like Waymo and some of the work that Uber is doing and a variety of different companies all come out of the work that was happening during that challenge. I competed with Virginia Tech and got very interested in autonomous vehicle technology and have been working in it since.
Excellent.
Well, thank you. Well, Joe, given your leadership role in robotic research, can you talk to us a little bit about the current need for interdisciplinary education? And then would you expand a little bit more and tell us what do current or aspiring public safety personnel need to know about expanding their technical skills and their professional networks?
Sure. So robotics and autonomous vehicle industry in general is very interdisciplinary. It requires so many different skill sets. And, for example, in like DevOps, IT, whether that's cybersecurity, networking, cloud services, things like that, to fabrication, being able to build wiring harnesses on the engineering side with mechanical, electrical systems, safety, computer science, and obviously the managerial related work too. So it's very, very interdisciplinary, and it really helps to not be just familiar in one, but in multiple. It really strengthens you as a part of the team to be able to do more than one, especially because a lot of these things mix and intertwine. And there's a lot of gray area. There's not, there's some things that are very clear cut. This is electrical, this is computer science. But when those two things meet, there's a substantial amount of gray area that requires skill sets in both. And just in general, this industry is growing so quickly and rapidly. I mean, there's new hardware coming out every year, new LiDAR technology, new radar technology, new algorithms, new GPUs, that you have to continue to grow with the industry or you're going to be left behind. And so it's very important to continue learning, not only your breadth of knowledge, but the depth of knowledge, and continue to keep up with the state of art. So, continuing this education is a critical component in, really being involved in this particular industry.
Thank you.
Joe, piggybacking on the kind of expanse and increase in number of types of technologies, can you provide a framework for how the public safety community might expand its use of geographic information systems?
So one of the things, because this is quite an evolving area of development, it's very important to plan ahead and learn and learn about new technologies that are coming into play, so that you can be prepared for what's going to happen a decade from now. A lot of the technology is evolving so quickly, and so things, for example, in the autonomous vehicle area, one of the big things is you probably heard in the news, HD maps, which is being able to generate maps that the autonomous vehicles can to consume, so that they know where to go, they know information about the scene, just like you have Google Maps that allow you to go from your house to the grocery store. The AV technology needs similar things, but different. And those things all need to be highly accurate, like your typical GIS applications. And then there's other things like different methodologies for surveying. We have a variety of equipment. For example, how do you track personnel indoors or in underground environments? And that's very much applicable to a variety of different folks in first responders. Think of firemen that gets lost in the smoke in a building. How do we recover those folks and get them out, or how can they get themselves out when they can't even see their hands? In other situations and first responders where you need to know where you are inside of a building or inside of a tunnel, or be able to map those kinds of things fairly quickly.
That's excellent, Joe, and sounds like something we could do a whole other interview on. Those are fascinating topics. Thank you.
And thank you, Joe. And certainly, public safety touches all aspects of a progressive and a global society. And you've touched on some of these things already this morning. Would you talk a little bit more about your perspective as a governmental contractor and the technical tools that you can provide, whether you provide it to the military, to DHS, to FEMA, or to some local public safety responders? Perhaps you want to expand a little bit.
Sure. So yeah, to continue on that thread. So we have a variety of different pieces of equipment that are currently already being used by the military and the Homeland Security. And that includes, for example, the Warlock system, or what we call the MAL, that is a footborne unit that we can put on a person and they can track them. But we also have drones that we build ourselves that not only fly like a typical drone does, but also drives. And the interesting part of that is now that unlocks a capability that you can't get with these capabilities independently. So a flying vehicle can only fly for 15-20 minutes with any reasonable payload like a camera and other equipment. On the flip side, a ground vehicle can't fly over a fence, can't get on top of a roof, can't go over the stairs, fly into a second story window. But by combining the two, you can unlock completely new mission profiles, things that you wouldn't have been able to do in the past. And so being aware of this, because someone has to be clever enough to figure out what the new procedures are, right? We have a lot of, here's how we do it with the technology we've had for the last few decades, but now we need to rethink how you approach certain problems with the new technologies that are around. So can I fly a vehicle on top of a roof, position it in a way that I can now say an area? So let's say there's an active shooter situation and I need to fly a drone to the roof so that I can at least have a view over that courtyard. Now I can do those things together with one vehicle. And I can do it for hours because, like I said, a ground vehicle can drive for 6 hours and it can stay still for a lot longer than 6 hours. So, and if I want to fly into a window, drive down the hallway, I can do those kinds of things. And then it also helps a lot with different types of inspection things as well. Like we're working with the team to do inspection of like solar fields, solar panel farms, and a variety of other things like that too, and railways and variety of inspection. So there's there's these new, the interesting part is that there's these new technologies, and it's not just developing the technologies, but how do you rethink about how to use it and how do you do things with these technologies, because it's completely different.
Thank you, Joe.
And I think our next question piggybacks on that as well, Joe. With respect to having to think through implementation, can you talk a little bit about what challenges do innovative research companies like yours face in terms of technology, and then what types of regulations do you bump up against that we should be aware of?
Of course, with any new technology, regulation is always a challenge, because either it's non-existent or you have to go through exemptions, or it's evolving. And that's the case, obviously, with the drones. It's the federal government's trying to figure out how to leverage commercial drones in the industry, whether you can fly near people and around property and things like that. There's a lot of different technologies out there, especially in the AV world. DSRC, for example, is currently being voted on through the FCC on deciding whether that frequency is going to continue to exist, and that has implications that trickle in through how do you deal with traffic signals and things like that in an autonomous vehicle. And then there's, of course, on the greater AV autonomous vehicle market is how do you get these vehicles driving on public roadways? And so that's a difficult challenge that's getting worked through right now, slowly but surely. With regards to a variety of different challenges, there's challenges across the board. Even finding people that have the skill sets necessary to catch up with demand of the technology, and so having the educational institutions there that are proactively looking at what the technologies are of the future and making sure we have skills that accommodate for those is certainly helping. A couple of decades ago, there weren't any programs out there except for very few that had specializations in robotics, for example, and that's changing quite significantly as of the last few decades, especially over the last 5 years. And continuing to keep, on the academic side, continue to keep up with what the needs are is certainly useful and part of the challenge.
But I really have a question around how you at Robotic Research, kind of a private sector organization, how do you manage the concerns about privacy that arise from growing autonomous vehicles, that includes drones, when they are now populating in the news as concern? So for example, in New Hampshire, a small municipality has adopted drone response by local police, and the citizens there are concerned about what that means for them. What does your work look like in the private sector to assuage some of those concerns or to meet consumer attempts at ensuring privacy?
Sure, I can answer that. There's different rules across the globe. Typically referred to as PII, personal identifiable information, there's different requirements for abiding by that. For example, Europe is pretty stringent on it, and so because we work in the global space, they're probably the most stringent. For example, we taking video of people, taking video of license plates, things like that. So we take precautions, making sure that we still need to collect data, because the federal government, for example, on the autonomous vehicle side, require us to be able to provide data in case they request it. And so that includes camera data and all that kind of stuff. But what we do is we end up blurring things like license plates and faces so that we don't store that PII. And of course, we don't have to worry about names and social security numbers and those kinds of things. But where it impacts us is mostly in video. And so we take precautions with blurring. and also controlling where the vehicle is operating, right? So we can geofence the vehicles from operating certain areas. So we can very much control what it's doing pretty finely.
Thank you. That's helpful.
So talk to us a little bit about the pandemic and how has robotic research supported the whole of community response to this pandemic?
Sure. So early on, we wanted to help out with especially with the limited supplies that the medical industry had. We were looking at different ways that we could help with providing masks and things like that to especially for the medical folks. And so we were actually one of the early ones to provide 3D printed facial masks to the variety of hospitals in Maryland and some in other states. So we have a lot of expertise in 3D printing, and so that was one of the big pushes. We've been trying to work on different solutions for transit. Obviously, the transit industry has been extremely hit with COVID, and how do you transport people on buses when we're worried about social distancing and things like that. And so we've been working with other several companies on how do you leverage, for example, ultraviolet to kill the virus, and a variety of other air conditioning the air and things like that, especially in mass transit applications where the throughput of passengers is the goal, and which is not the goal for social distancing. So trying to work out those challenges is something that we've been pretty active in.
Well, thank you for your contribution. We certainly appreciate that. And Joe, recently Robotic Research earned a very prestigious award. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that award and your contribution to earn it?
Sure. We were awarded the award through the GovCon for Contractor of the Year, and I believe Program of the Year for our Warlock system, which is the foot-borne localization system. We went through a production of that and have delivered that to soldiers in the U.S. Army, and it's been a very successful project. With the ever-growing needs in the military that are unique, right? There's no longer traditional warfare that's going on. They need more specialized equipment, and so technologies like this that we've been developing over the years, I think is really going to help improve the safety for our warfighter.
Well, Joe, congratulations on the award. And from a grateful nation, thank you for helping to preserve the safety of our first responders and certainly our military. We greatly appreciate that. So Joe, to our young people in the audience today, what would you like to tell them about this career and joining and preparing to serve in a professional field like robotics research?
Sure. So, my advice is to get into a career that stimulates you mentally and that you enjoy, whether it's robotics or anything else. It also helps to be able to make money at the same time. I think that's a good component of it, which certainly engineering is the case, or robotics technologies. I've been doing this at this company for 14 years, but in robotics in general for 16 years. And I wouldn't be doing this if I wasn't very excited about the overall objective of what we're doing, trying to make things easier and safer. So I'm very much rewarded from the overall goal, but also stimulated mentally that, I'm very excited about problem solving, and every aspect of this is how to problem solve. And so I encourage anybody that's excited about problem solving and technical challenges and different kinds of puzzles. Robotics is certainly that because it involves so many different pieces, whether it's electricals, computers, mechanical, all these things come to interlock and interplay. And that's really what makes it exciting. And And more importantly, it's always different. I'm not doing the same thing that I was doing last year, because not only is the market continuing to change, but the industry is changing. And also there's so many different job positions that you can have even within robotics. You know, as I started as an engineer that was programming software, was able to take on more leadership, technical leadership, program management, and then ultimately the director of commercial systems. And all those pieces all have different problems to solve, but they're different and you have to continue to learn. So anyways, love this industry and continue to love this industry. And I certainly encourage more people to join. It's not going to go away. It's only going to grow. So, and you know, especially it's an industry that's continuing to grow. You know, it's not going to disappear in a couple decades. So I think that's another important thing, is to think about what industry you not only enjoy, but, you know, has potential for growth over the next 20, 30 years.
So, Joe, as a growing industry and filled with partnerships, how would an individual begin to build their professional network? Where do you start?
So I can tell you how I started. A couple ways. One is obviously building a foundation of education, right? You have to have these tools that you can apply. Secondly is to start building up a network as much as you can. And one of those ways is internships. And we have an internship program here, so I highly recommend applying. We have a variety of different roles, you know, IT, engineering, even other things like accounting, right? So I would highly recommend interning. I participated in a co-op program when I was in school, so I actually interned for 4 different semesters before I entered the workforce. And actually, for me, it was kind of a funny thing. I learned what I didn't want to do versus what I really like to do. And that was actually very important for me because I didn't waste time. When I picked my first job coming out of college, I knew exactly what I wanted. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And as a result, I've been here for 14 years. So, you know, when I interned for, you know, in that particular case, I interned at a large firm and realized that wasn't for me. The particular field wasn't quite as stimulating for me that I wanted. So I could figure out what I wanted to do, and then in the process, build up a resume, which is very important, right? How do you discriminate yourself from other folks to show that you have a lot more value than and be competitive to the employer. And then you know, and most of it is internships, I think.
Joe, thank you for those great tips. We really appreciate that.
Mhm.
And to our audience, we also thank you for joining us. We will continue to gather the best and the brightest minds in the field to help break down fast-moving technologies, keep tabs on industry trends, and enhance your knowledge, or perhaps your agency's ability to respond. So join us through LinkedIn, our blog, or YouTube channels for tips and tricks from our experts to help make implementing technology that much easier.